Life does not get better by chance, it gets better by design. Welcome to Design to Win with Jamaican entrepreneur and your Design to Win coach, Kamika Ruth Taylor. This show brings to you Caribbean stories, life strategies, and secrets to win at life. And now, here's your host.
Hello, Wagwan. Welcome to episode 2 of Design to Win. I'm your host, C. Ruth Taylor, and this is a show where we give you the roadmap to win at life with a little Caribbean flavor. And this week is the start of our Caribbean Stories feature segment. And in today's show, I'm going to be doing an interview with a very good friend of mine, Kenyatta Lewis, and he's truly a Caribbean person, and you'll hear more about that. But we're going to be talking about design thinking, what it means to win, and what are some of the keys to win as a church and as we go through this pandemic. So stay tuned. Welcome back. It's story time. And as I said, we are looking at, when we're sharing Caribbean stories, there is inspiration to win all around us. So we don't have to look far to find it. I recognize, even in my own family, that there's an abundance of inspiration. In the Caribbean, we too have stories to tell that can give hope to others. And in our Caribbean story feature segment, we're looking at persons in the Caribbean who are making a difference and making an impact, not necessarily famous persons, but they are an inspiration to others, and their lives is creating an impact on those around them. And with me today is my good friend Kenyatta Lewis. He is pastor of Harvest Bible Chapel in Turks and Caicos, and he's going to share his thoughts with us. So welcome to the show, Kenyatta.
Ruth, thank you so much for having me. And let me say this, you have been an inspiration to me, as you have been to many other people. I think you exemplify the whole idea of looking for the good, hunting for the good, and hunting inspiration. And I'm really glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Now, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yes. So I was born in Union Island. Now, Union Island is a part of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. St. Vincent is the main land, so to speak. And then you have 31 other islands that make up the Grenadines. 8 of them are, have inhabitants, and I was born on the one called Union Island. So I'm a Unionite, so to speak, right? Now, this is what Union Island is, well, not known for or famous for, but in 1979, as strange as it may sound, there was an attempted coup. I don't know if that's the right word, but there was a revolution. There was a revolution that took place on Union Island. And just to mention that last year was the 40th year anniversary, and some of the guys who were involved actually came together. So Union Island it's a proud island, and I don't say that in the bad sense of being arrogant, but it's a resourceful people, it's a hardy people, it's a strong people, and I consider myself blessed to have been born in Union Island. Now, here's the other thing to kind of continue the story, right, is that at the age of 5 or thereabouts, I left Union Island and I went to Trinidad and Tobago and lived there for a number of years, going to school and doing my schooling there. And again, I had a great experience. Of course, there were times that were pretty difficult, but Trinidad is an amazing place. It's a great place. I think that Trinidadians were created by God for comic relief, right? I think
That's interesting.
Funniest people in the world, and loved my time there. I loved the friends that I had. And then after school, I returned back to St. Vincent, and I went and lived on another one of the Grenadine Islands called Canawan. And there I worked as a power plant operator with the electricity company, and then went into full-time ministry. And I think it was the beginning of my time into full-time ministry, first with Wycliffe Bible Translators, that I first met you.
Yes, in 2006.
Yes, yes, yes. So I've been in full-time ministry since 2006, actually. So this is the 14th year, and it's been a wild, amazing ride. And just kind of continue this story, I did a number of different things as a full-time Christian worker, worked with Evangelical Association, worked with Wycliffe, as I mentioned earlier, um, was part of a church planting team that helped to plant a church. And then I had the privilege of assisting, or rather recruiting, men across the Caribbean to serve as church planters, and well, men and teams, so to speak. And then 4 years ago, I accepted a call to become the lead pastor of Harvest Bible Chapel here in Turks and Caicos. So I've had the privilege of being born in Union Island. I've had the privilege of growing up in Trinidad. I've had the privilege of moving back to St. Vincent and living there and enjoying that. And then coming to Turks and Caicos, where I am currently. And in addition to that, just traveling the Caribbean. I mean, the Caribbean is so lovely. Each island has its own uniqueness. And I love it. Love the Caribbean.
Wow, you are a true Caribbean man. But let's focus a little on your island of origin.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that St. Vincent and the Grenadines is famous for, that you think our listeners would love to know about?
Yeah, there's so many good things. But I think one of the things that come to mind quickly is the whole idea that in St. Vincent, or on St. Vincent rather, which is the mainland, as I mentioned earlier, we have white sand beaches and we have black sand beaches.
Wow, black sand beaches.
Yes, yes. St.
Okay.
Vincent is a volcanic island. There's an active volcano, which incidentally erupted in 1979. No, that's a different story, because St. Vincent got independence in 1979. There was a volcanic eruption, and then in Union Island, there was an attempted coup. So 1979 is a big year in Vincentian history. Yeah, but you have black sand beaches, and I could, to be very honest, when I moved back to St. Vincent from Trinidad, I did not appreciate the black sand beaches at first. And I think that's indicative of a bigger story in my life, where I have grown to appreciate the gifts that have been given to me, the experiences, and sort of like on the Caribbean as a whole, to really value the things that we have.
Okay, that's good. So it's a volcanic island, and it's also known for its black sand beaches.
Yes.
Awesome. So I've never been to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but I have other friends there, and I hope to experience it soon. So I know recently you did a program that focused on design thinking and
Mm-hmm.
how that can help persons to win. Can you just explain that to the audience? Because, you know, the name of the show is Designed to
Yes,
Win.
yes.
So can you
Yeah.
take us through that? What is, I know I'm not supposed to ask several questions at the same time, right? But explain to us what is design thinking and how that whole process can help us to win.
Okay, well, I'll sort of just talk a little bit about the big picture of what design thinking is, and then the specific program that you referenced. So design thinking basically is a problem-solving framework, if I could use that phrase. It's been around for some time now, and it's the whole idea of, especially if it's used in a company, finding out what the client wants and then building around that, and before you present to the client something. So I would not sit down and think, oh, I think that X group would need this book. No, I find out from the group what they need, and then I prototype that, share it with them, and then once they're and then get feedback and then bring out the thing. So I was a part of a conference, so to speak, called Praxis, and there was this guy called Dave Evans who was speaking about designing your life, which was the whole idea of applying the innovation principles of design thinking to the idea of designing your life. So one step led to another. Kind of found out what he was doing, and him and his colleague Bill Burnett teach a class, an elective class at Stanford University in the US called Design Thinking, or rather Design Your Life, Design Your Stanford Life. And they do some coaching around this. And it was so interesting to me that I signed up, and that was another story of God's grace in terms of, if it wasn't done online due to this current season that we're in, I would not have been able to make it financially. But it was done online, and I was able to participate in this whole thing about learning how to use these principles of design thinking to help people to live a better life, or to design a better life, or to deal with the problem or whatever problem they have.
I find that very interesting, because as part of the Design to Win roadmap, in our 5-step process, the first part of that is discovery.
Yes.
And you find out, what is it that you desire? What are your dreams? What are your hopes? It's about self-awareness. And then when we can figure that out, then we help you to put a plan in place to bring that design to life. So that is very interesting. Now, as a church leader, I know you're a very innovative church leader, and I want to congratulate you for how you have enabled your church to navigate the pandemic in the midst of COVID-19. And I see you online, and I know many churches struggled with that, the transition from analog to digital. Can you tell us, what is it that you put in place to ensure that there was a smooth transition and you were still able to minister to the needs of the congregation during this season?
Yeah, thank you for that, Kamika. It wasn't always smooth. And all praise to God. So can I give a little history? Prior to COVID-19, we were doing in-person service like everybody else, and we would record that, and then we would sort of push that out on Facebook and on YouTube. And it was okay, because we felt that the main priority was that in-person gathering. But here comes this pandemic, and we can't meet, and everybody is stuck at home, and we are trying to fight the spread of this pandemic. So we had to innovate. And I can tell you, through prayer and through just a great number of people, and that's an important thing, having a team, having people who are invested in the vision. We came together and we started recording services and pushing it out online. So we went from in-person with a sort of scratchy, not very good quality, pushed out online, to now everything we had to do was online. So last Sunday, which is 6th of September, was the first time we met in 6 months in person.
Wow.
So for 6 straight months, we had to be doing everything online. So somebody was worshiping in their home and recording it. I was preaching, or somebody else was preaching in their home or wherever they were and recording that. We had a different person doing ministry update, a different person doing prayer. And then we had persons coming together, working to put that together. And I want to stop and say that, right? I want to say this, that there's sometimes we don't know what we can do until we are pushed into it, until we are forced to innovate, or we are forced to think differently, or we are forced to depend upon God to help us. Nobody in our church would describe themselves as a video editor. Nobody. And yet we've had to do that. And the guys who have been doing a terrific job. We've learned, we've made mistakes, but we have had to learn. And it's been a process of fully depending upon God. But we've realized that moving to digital, going online, opened us up to a different audience. And the way people look at online service is very different from the way they look at in-person service. So in person, we would have met for 90 minutes, thereabouts, probably 100 minutes, hour and a half, hour and three-quarter. Online, we try to get it to 1 hour, right? Because again, the audience is slightly different, but the way the audience consume, for the lack of a better word, consume what is there is also different. So we've had to change that. We've had to change not the content of the preaching per se, but the length, right? And how we teach. So one of our principles as a church is biblically digestible teaching. And prior to, again, COVID-19, I or someone else would preach for 35 to 45 minutes. And when we now had to make this adjustment, we realized that, listen, our value is biblically digestible teaching. How could we keep that value and make the adjustment? And we did that. So sermons went from 35 to 45 minutes to 25 to 35 minutes, and then 25 to 30 minutes. Content remains the same. We believe in bold expository preaching, but we had to make that adjustment. And then another thing that we did was to involve more persons, not just in the service, but in what we are pushing out. So we started doing short videos where we got different people in church who had different skills, who may not have come forward prior to this season. And we had them talk about things that they were known for, or things that they were good with, or things that they were winning in life. So we had a single mother talk about how do you keep your toddler sane during this time. We had an executive who was working from home who gave some tips about working from home. We had a student who talked about how could you successfully navigate a quick switch or a quick pivot to online learning. We had an entrepreneur talk about his journey of starting a business during the 2008 financial crisis, and how this season, don't allow your dreams to die, because you can still pursue that dream in this season. We had persons during the race influenced, I don't want to call them riots, but the protesting and just the big issue about race that happened in America. We had people come and talk about that in the Caribbean. What does race look like in the Caribbean? What does colorism look like? I mean, we have brown skin and light skin and fair skin and dark skin and all of that and what that looks like. So we were able, going to digital, to get a lot more people involved in the church and a lot more people involved in discussions about pertinent things. So we have a few mixed race couples in the church, and we spoke to them. There was a lady who, her kids are biracial, and she talked about sitting down with those children and listening to them and hearing from them and trying to understand what they feel like, that when they're driving and they're pulled over, how they feel, and why her son takes out his phone whenever a police pulls them over, and how she doesn't have that, or she doesn't feel that, but she's trying to understand what her children are going through. So the digital move allowed us to involve more people in the discussion, It allowed us to get stories from more people, similar to what you were doing. It allowed us to hear from more people, but it also allowed us to be a little bit more creative in pushing content out. And we have been able to push out content in a number of different ways.
Wow, this is exactly why I brought you on the program because you have inspired me, and I'm sure you've inspired other churches in the transition, because your thinking in going digital has been radically different. Most churches were just looking for a substitute and they just started streaming their services, but I hear that a lot of thought went into it. You were planning for it from before, so the transition was a little bit easier. And what I heard there, for when we meet face to face, part of the challenge with church is that pastors and leaders are saying not enough persons are participating. But what we're getting here is that digital, if you use the digital wisely, you can get more people to be involved, and that is a master key. So don't just look at digital now that we're not meeting as we normally would, that we just need to stream the 1 hour service, but begin to think, how can we become innovative? How can we get more of our members involved, rather than just bringing face-to-face online with the Bible study and the service? How can we become more innovative? And you've given us a lot of ideas there.
And if I could jump in with one thing, right? Since we have gone back in person, we are not streaming our in-person service. We are doing a separate, packaged for online service. So the worship, the preaching, the person who's doing our ministry up there, the person who's praying, we package that for online. And what we do on a Sunday morning, same songs, same message, right? But that's different. That's for online. Now, you may be thinking, wow, you guys have a big team. No, we don't. Volunteers, and we do have an assistant pastor. But we realize, and we are trusting God, and He's leading in this, that we should not stop innovating. So a few weeks ago, I preached on the beach. I was speaking from Acts, and I was talking about the section of the book where Paul was in a shipwreck, and I went on the beach and preached from the beach, right? And it was so fun. It was so great. And then there was another time I spoke from a house, as in went into a house, spoke in a house, went into a little room in that house and spoke from there. So it allows innovation and it allows involvement from more people.
Wow, I love that. So it's not just a substitute, but you're seeking to use the medium in an effective way.
Yes,
and this is really a season for what we call adaptive leadership.
Yeah.
And there's a sense in which when yesterday's solutions become today's constraints, it is time for us to employ new and innovative thinking. And I want to congratulate you and Harvest Bible Chapel for doing that. We are almost out of time. We may have to do a part 2, but I can't let you go without quickly speaking to this. When I did the written interview, we are doing a book together, League of the Extraordinary, where I'm highlighting some people that are winning. And I asked you to state what is your greatest accomplishment. And although you have training in business, project management, theology, and social work, we didn't introduce you with all of those degrees and accomplishments for a specific purpose, because you have said that your greatest accomplishment is overcoming internal blockers. Can you talk a little bit more about that in a minute or two and help someone who is struggling with that? We will have to bring you back, but can you touch on that? Why is that
Yes.
such your greatest accomplishment? What is this thing about overcoming internal
Oh
blockers?
boy, oh boy. Self-limiting thoughts, dysfunctional beliefs, you name them, and they hold us back, right? Because there's a story that we tell ourselves, and that story has been influenced through a number of different things, and that story holds us back. And we have to reframe and tell a different story, a better story. And that better story starts with Jesus, of course. And for me, it's been a constant effort in speaking the gospel to myself, affirming biblical principles, telling this story, and realizing that my story is part of the bigger story of God sending his son to rescue mankind and give them a new life. And I know we can't touch on everything right now, but I can say self-limiting beliefs or dysfunctional beliefs, these internal blockers, as you call them, they are so dangerous. They're so insidious, and they creep up on us, and they prevent us from living the life that God has called us to live. But God has called us to live a life of freedom and a life of abundance and a life of truth and faith and hope. And we now need to start to, Romans 12, 1-2, right? Have our minds transformed away from this world and transformed to the image of Christ.
Wow. Thank you so much, Kenyatta. We are just about out of time, but where can we connect with you? If persons want to reach you, where can we find you?
Yes, so Harvest Bible Chapel, Turks and Caicos, we website, you can check that out, harvesttci.tc. On Facebook, I'm there as Kenyatta Lewis. LinkedIn, I'm there as Kenyatta Lewis. The church's Facebook page, you can also contact me through there also.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And my Design to Win fans, those who are listening to this program, our master key for today is when the music changes, so does the dance. And that is an African proverb. And as we close the show, let us say our Design to Win pledge. There's greatness in me. It's possible to live my dreams. No matter how bad it is or how bad it gets, I'm going to make it. With faith, courage, and consistent action, I'm going to make it. It's not over until I win. Remember, it's not over until you win. So, ta for now, until next time.
You've just heard Design to Win with Kamika Ruth Taylor. Join us again next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time for another episode of Design to Win.